Listen, here's a straight shooting thought. Just because a cartridge comes with a fancy name or a spec sheet don't mean it's earned its keep in your emergency prep kit. We've all seen the hype. Boutique rounds, pricey oddballs, or cartridges that hold on to past glory. But when things go south and you're staring at empty shelves, the fluff's worthless. You need ammo that packs a punch, cycles smooth, and actually appears when you need it. In this here video, we're spelling out 7 cartridges that just don't measure up for long-term survival, or if society takes a nosedive. There's a boutique AR powerhouse that'll drain your wallet before it stops anything serious. A little pop gun round that just might bounce off a thick coat, and some relics from the Cold War that bring more trouble than help. If you're gearing up for a collapse, social chaos, or the long haul, you should focus on tried and true calibers that are reliable, reloadable, and readily available. Grab a seat, leave your ego behind, and let's have a chat about the rounds you might want to skip when things turn sideways. 32 H&R Magnum. We start off with a round that sounds cooler than it shoots. Came into being in 1984 from Harrington and Richardson, trying to give the old .32 Smith & Wesson Long a new lease. They made the case longer, upped the pressure, and sold it as a mild option for trail guns and snub-nose revolvers. Theoretically, it throws an 85-grain jacketed hollow point at about 1,100 feet per second out of a 4-inch barrel. Looks good on paper, but here's the rub. The practical energy levels out between 222 and 225 foot-pounds, landing it between .32 ACP and .38 special, nowhere near .38 plus P. The snag is availability. In an average week, you're staring at prices between 90 cents and $1 a round, and that's before any panic buying kicks in. Last winter, prices even climbed past $120 per box. Options for brass and bullet are limited, and reloading doesn't go as smoothly compared to .38 special. Even handloaders criticize it. Some folks try cutting down 327 federal brass and tweaking lighter loads, but guess what? That still hinges on finding powder and primers that are fast disappearing from shelves. Worse yet, performance across shorter barrels can be inconsistent with velocity varying between 70 to 90 feet per second. That's a real challenge when you need precision for small game or steel targets. And don't expect reliable expansion in a fight. Most hollow points aren't designed for the velocity range this round operates in. Even Federal's 85-grain defensive load may clog on heavy outerwear and act much like ball ammo. Stack all this up against the trusty .38 special, proven through 2 world wars, and the .32 H&R looks like a relic. A Smith & Wesson J-frame in .38 or a Ruger LCR in .357. Dialed down to .38 gives you better penetration, more ammo availability, and lower cost per shot. And when every shelf is bare, that reliability means more than nostalgia. 25 ACP. Back in the early 1900s, John Browning created the 25 ACP to solve the issues of rimfire cartridges. Back then, tiny centerfire pistols for pocket carry made sense for folks like gamblers and shopkeepers needing a backup piece they could tuck into a vest. But fast forward to today, and in a serious crisis, this round just doesn't cut it. You're looking at a 50-grain full metal jacket moving at 760 feet per second from a 2-inch barrel. That's merely 65 foot-pounds of energy. In ballistic gel, it struggles to reach 8 inches of penetration, quite shy of the FBI's recommended 12 inches. And that's before adding jackets or heavy coats into the mix. Capacity-wise, those little mags hold about 6 or 7 rounds, but the combined energy of a full mag is akin to a single 9mm gold dot. And these days, 9mm prices can be nearly identical at around 34 cents a round, sometimes cheaper if you're savvy. Reliability in these pocket pistols is another weak link. Straight wall cases and small blowback slides don't mesh well with grime or weak springs. Just one bad extractor or a gelled-up chamber, and you've got a single-shot pistol on your hands. Tough times don't favor vintage charm, but punish weak calibers and peculiar parts. When it's time to trade, no one's giving up essentials for a tiny caliber that causes trouble for handloaders and vanishes once the distribution network tightens up. If you're set on a pocket piece, a .2 2LR Ruger LCP-2 with a light slide is a sound option. Cheaper ammo, deeper penetration with the right load, and spare mags you can track down after the first couple of weeks. Every ounce you carry should pull its weight. The .25 ACP doesn't. 30 Carbine. Originally crafted in 1941, the .30 Carbine powered M1 Carbines for support troops in World War II. On paper, it seemed promising. A 110-grain full metal jacket rocketing out of an 18-inch barrel at roughly 1,990 feet per second, generating just under 965 foot-pounds of energy. But that figure doesn't paint the whole picture. Past 150 yards, that energy drops significantly. And the bullet design isn't much help. It doesn't wound like a true rifle round. It slots right between a hot pistol and a proper intermediate rifle cartridge. Some old-timers rave about the soft recoil, and indeed, it's gentle. But that's due to the light bullet, and light means instability in the wind. A 10-mile-per-hour crosswind pushes that 110-grain ball nearly 8 inches at 200 yards. That's double the drift of a typical 5.5/6. Soft points improve terminal performance a smidge, but they still don't tumble or yaw like Spitzer rifle bullets. In terms of barrier penetration, it manages about 7 inches through softwood 2x4s, which is just on par with a 9mm NATO. Then there's the rifle itself. M1 carbines are temperamental. Early inland extractors often don't work with the latest Winchester bolts. Reproduction barrels sometimes come with loose chambers that swell your brass after just a few loads. And don't even mention the mags. Let them knock around in your pack, and you might only get 2 shots out before the follower jams. Imagine that happening during a collapse. You mess up a bolt lug or crush a mag spring, and you're out of the game. Replacement parts aren't found at your local superstore or community co-op. And count out steel case imports. They're almost non-existent. Factory ammo costs about 48 cents per round, and soft points can jump over 60. Most guns chambered for it are aging surplus or low production lever actions, hampered by 15-round mags and parts that surface only at auctions. Stack that against a simple AR-15 and 5.5/6, and there's just no competition. Double the range, fewer part headaches, and magazines and ammo are everywhere. From forgotten patrol cars to over half the nation's armories, when a crisis hits, nostalgia just doesn't hold water in your setup. 32 ACP. The 32 ACP, or 7.65 Browning, has been around since 1899. It's been wielded by everyone from European detectives to underworld operatives. But now, in an actual collapse, it's a risk most wouldn't take. A standard load, a 71-grain full metal jacket, exits a 3-inch barrel at 900 feet per second. That's roughly 130 foot-pounds of energy, not what you'd want in a self-defense round. Hollow points rarely expand at these speeds, and FMJs frequently ricochet off bone or veer off course once they connect with something solid. Fans often highlight the soft recoil. Sure, it's gentle, but in a straight blowback pistol, that slide weight creates more muzzle rise than you'd anticipate. Locked breech Micro 9s actually shoot straighter under stress, negating any supposed speed edge the .32 offers. Now consider parts. Try hunting down a firing pin spring for an FN 1910 or a safety piece for a Beretta 3032 after deliveries stop. Best of luck. A lot of these pistols use heel mag catches slower than a snail, and rust's another issue. Most wartime pistols utilize basic carbon steel. Leave one in a damp spot, and it'll rust before you're through your next can of beans. Meanwhile, current models such as the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus devour any 9mm you find, have coated slides, and share parts with countless other pistols. In prolonged emergencies, that level of interchangeability outshines nostalgia each and every time. Now on to costs. At present, 32 rounds run between 36 to 40 cents each, equal to, or even more than brass-cased 9mm, which strikes with twice the force and is supplied on every emergency truck across the U.S. Folks aren't rolling out supplies of .32 ACP in a nationwide crisis. These guns are specialized, their magazines are scarce, and their extractors are delicate. When a part fails, you're out of luck. A streamlined .380, like the S&W Bodyguard, delivers more impact and better access to ammo. Or move up to a Micro 9 like the SIG P365 for double stack capacity without exceeding cost per shot. When equipment is crucial and ammo scarce, the .32 ACP doesn't cut it. 5.7 by 28 millimeters. In 1990, Fabrique Nationale launched the 5.7 by 28 millimeter alongside the P90, advertising it as a light defense round capable of piercing armor. Promising until you read the fine print. Civilians never got the armor-piercing loads. We get the sporty versions, and the performance tells a different tale. A 40-grain VMAX flies from a 16-inch PS90 at approximately 2,350 feet per second. From a 5-inch pistol, it's closer to 2,000. Energy lies around 350 foot-pounds, not much beyond a zesty .22 Magnum. The flight path is flat up to about 175 yards. Beyond that, the projectile dumps velocity rapidly. Charts start looking like shrunken-down .2, 2-250 stats. By the outfield, energy has dipped below 200 foot-pounds, leaving any soft target on the receiving end wondering why a varmint round joined a serious encounter. Let's touch on gear. Most 5.7 rifles ship with 20 or 30 round mags, but they use unique feeders, with springs that weaken if left loaded too long. You'll need extras. Once the grid crashes, you're not crafting spring steel in the garage. The pistols tell a similar story. You'll get 20 rounds in an FN57 or Ruger 57, but every mag has a narrow rear spacer. Lose that, and you're left with a pricey paperweight. Meanwhile, Glock 17 mags are in every third household in America. Simple, cheaper, reliable. During the initial pandemic frenzy, 5.7 ammo soared past $1.70 a pop. Even now it hovers around 40 cents plus. Reloading isn't straightforward either. You require lacquered brass and tiny rifle primers. Good luck stockpiling them when shipping ceases. Everything about this caliber, from magazines to bolts to followers, is exclusive. Misplace a bolt stop in a bartering town, and your high-speed PDW becomes a costly club. For compact power, a 9mm carbines or a Glock with 33-round magazines offer superior terminal power, cheaper rounds, and accessible replacement parts. The 5.7 might be flashy on paper, but when it's gut check time, it's more science, project than practical tool. 41 Magnum. The .41 Magnum was meant to be the sweet spot. In 1964, Smith & Wesson joined forces with Remington to engineer a cartridge striking harder than a .357, minus the kick of a .44. Seemed plausible on paper, but in reality, it got lost in the shuffle and never landed a solid home. A standard load, a 210-grain soft point, reaches around 1,300 feet per second out of a 6-inch barrel. That's roughly 790 foot-pounds. Strong numbers, sure. But revolvers built for it weigh on par with their .44 Magnum cousins, and the recoil's nearly the same. Police didn't latch on. The so-called police load, a 210-grain semi-wad cutter at 950 feet per second, was rarely stocked. Most officers stayed with .38s or made the leap to automatics. In dire survival times, the ammo you can't source isn't ammo you can count on. Reloaders enjoy showing off by hand-casting 220-grain Keith-style slugs and zipping them at 1,500 feet per second. That sounds solid for bare defense in the backwoods until you consider what it demands. You'll need alloy, heat, and propane. In a world sans grid, those items vanish quickly, and jacketed bullets from companies like Hornady cost $45 per 100, almost double the price of comparable .44 rounds. Then there's pressure. Full .41 loads run close to 36,000 psi. Swap in the wrong powder batch, like maybe a new lot of 2-400, and you're risking that revolver's top section. That's not ideal when field repairs mean shaping parts with stones, not calling up deliveries. Parts are scarce. Try sourcing a rear sight for a Smith Model 57 today. You're down to auction sites or high-priced alternatives. Meanwhile, a Ruger Redhawk or Colt Anaconda in .44 Magnum takes nearly any accessory and still performs consistently. Current ammo averages 68 cents a pop, and costs climb fast as specialty brass dries up. And honestly, no one's opting for. Magnum in a trading circle. It's peculiar to one or two specific revolvers, and the majority lack one to start with. If you're after Magnum strength, choose .44. It's simpler to obtain, easier to reload, and you can adjust down to .44 special for less kick. Or if you're in need of a versatile wheel gun for everyday defense, the .357 Magnum still sits on the throne. You'll discover boxes of it in every supply store from here to the next county. 458 SOCOM. Around 2001, Marty Turwo and Tromix aimed to give the standard AR-15 a serious upgrade, something with 4570 energy within 200 yards. And with the 458 SOCOM, they nailed it. The issue is, they also created one of the most logistics-heavy cartridges you can wield when things go south. Let's talk power. A 300-grain jacketed hollow point from a 16-inch barrel reaches roughly 1,900 feet per second, unleashing close to 2,400 foot-pounds of energy. Subsonic loads toss 500-grain giants at over 1,050 feet per second. It'll hit steel quietly, but that strength cuts both ways. Standard 30-round 5.56 magazines fit only 10 rounds of .458, and they dive unless you modify the follower. Recoil thrusts like a 12-gauge slug. Scopes dislike it, and your shoulder won't be too thrilled either. This thing eats optics and shooters for breakfast. Then there's the cost. As of May 2024, box prices range from $49 to $130, $2.45 to $5.15 per hundred. During the 2021 ammo squeeze, even the handloaders struggled. Brass disappeared and bullets got rare, and you're not loading this stuff with any old supplies. You need precise powder mixes, restricted pressure range, and bullets managing 4.58 caliber Spitzers, or hefty monolithic rounds running over $1 each, minus primers or powder. The platform is finicky, too. You need a bolt with widened lugs and an extractor claw meant for it. Lose either, and you're not borrowing extras from anyone's 5.56 stash. Cold weather plays havoc with your gas system. Short strokes are certain unless you fine-tune the buffer, and none of that is compatible with your military carbine kit. Suppressed subs add an extra layer of complication. The powder charges for 500-grain loads don't fill the case, so if your rifle sits muzzle down, inconsistent burns might cause jams. When spare barrels are sparse, that's a game-ending scenario. Meanwhile, .308 just works. Large powder volumes fill the cases, and you've got sourced bullets, cast lead, or match-grade projectiles if the need arises. AR-10s and 7.62 by 51 rifles can stretch past 400 yards without fuss, with magazines and casings flooding the market. If you're searching for that thumper energy in a streamlined platform, consider a lever-action 4570. Easier to feed, simpler to repair, and no concerns about polymer mag softening if your trunk hits 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The .458 SOCOM shines on the range, but for a survival scenario, it's more of a diva in disguise. That's the rundown, 7 cartridges we wouldn't place bets on during a crisis. But hey, maybe you see it differently. Perhaps a favored caliber just got a tough review, and you're ready to lay out the facts in the comments. Did we miss one? What a hidden gem that deserves a mention? Or do you believe one of these still belongs in the bug-out pack? Share your thoughts. If this list stoked a debate among your pals, your hunting crew, or just in your own mind, you know what to do. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Keep your wits about you.